I'm giving you the biggest stories and events of 2022, the signposts that show us that this is happening. All right, so I was talking about how 2022 was the year that money died. And it's been dying. It's been taking shots. It's been taking abuse. It's been slowly getting wounded. It's been slowly slowing down. But I believe 2022 was the year that it received the fatal shot. And like I said, with game hunting or something like that, maybe it continues to live for a little while longer, but it's received the fatal shot. So the Canadian trucker protest really is where this started. And the reason why it started there is because Canada, North America, Canada, the U.S., Mexico, but part of North America, typically you'd look at Canada as a democratically run country, a free country, if you will, obviously the neighbor of the United States. And so you would look at it that way. Now, you see a lot of censorship and, oppression, especially from monetary oppression, in North Korea or in Afghanistan or something like that. You just don't expect to see it in Canada. So when you hear about people in, some third world country like Cuba, getting their bank account seized, well, that's kind of par for the course. That's what dictators do, right? When you see it happen in North Korea, sure, that's what dictators do. When it happens in Iran, sure, that's what dictators do. But when it happens in Canada, it's not what democratically elected free nations do. It's not what they do. And so we had the Canadian truckers. People came out to protest under the constitutional rights, peaceful protests. They tried to take them down any number of ways to smear them, make them look dangerous, all these things. But ultimately, when a GoFundMe account was created to actually give money donations, that's when things came off the rails. And so we saw, single mothers that donated $25 get their bank accounts frozen. Lots of people got their bank accounts frozen. And it really highlighted front and center that no matter where you live in the world, no matter how free you think your country is, it's not, because you don't have your money. And all of a sudden it found out, well, shoot, if they freeze my bank accounts, I'm locked down. That's like worse than prison. At least in prison, they give you food. They heat your jail cell or something. When your bank accounts are frozen, you can't buy food. You can't pay your utility bills. And so I think it put it to the world stage that, one, Canada is actually run like a dictatorship. Justin Trudeau, he's been videoed praising China, how he believes that their political system is superior. And so I think that put it front and center that money, government money, fiat money, currency, if you will, in the bank is not your money. And then if it had to get escalated anymore, I think ultimately it was put up on the altar and ultimately killed, sacrificed in the Russia-Ukraine situation. And so they're in the world right now, there's 3 global superpowers with nuclear weapons, and that is the United States, that is China, and that is Russia. And Russia decided to move on Ukraine for lots of very reasons we'll get to a little bit later. And they got their bank accounts frozen. So if you're one of 3 global superpowers with nuclear weapons and you can get your bank account seized and frozen, what chance does any other nation in the world have? And what chance does any business have? And what chance do you and I have? And of course, the answer is 0. 0 chance. If you say or do something that somebody doesn't like, which in today's day and age there's a long list of those things, and it's only growing. And so the whole world now, other nations, when it happened in Canada, it happened to the people. But now you're like a tier 2 nation, right? You're like France, or you're like Germany, or maybe you're like Ecuador, or Peru, or maybe you're Pakistan, and all of a sudden you go, well, shoot. We saw them take Afghanistan's money, $8 billion out of their central bank. But, I guess that's Afghanistan, and, we don't really like Afghanistan. But when it happens to Russia, every nation in the world notices, and they start taking action to prevent that from happening. So now the dollar is done. It's dead. Now, it's dying, but it took the fatal shot. And so we've seen China has now been angling and maneuvering to protect itself from the same fate that Russia had, de-dollarizing, so it can't be sanctioned in that way. We've seen the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The BRICS nations continue to get bigger. More nations are joining the BRICS. Argentina, Iran has joined the BRICS, and so they've gotten bigger. The BRICS association makes up more than half the people in the world today. They actually mine over 60% of the gold in the world today. And so they have set up, the BRICS nations collectively has set up a new payment network to compete against the dollar SWIFT network. And they've created an LBMA, London Bullion Market Association competitor, to break the grip of manipulation over gold. So it's dead. We also have the rise of central bank digital currencies. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. And we also have the collapse of asset prices. And so most people by now know that you should not store your wealth in dollars. Right? Dollars do not hold their purchasing power. And so people know that. So they try to put them in everything. They put them in stocks and bonds and real estate. They put them in gold. They put them in crypto. They put them in all these things. Anything to get out of the dollar, it's losing value. And the assets prices are now crashing, right? So we've seen the worst year for financial assets, stocks and bonds in over 50 years. And so money's died. Money's died. That's the big story of 2022. And trust died with it, I believe. All right, next we have revolutions. Now, obviously, we have the Russia-Ukraine situation going on, which is really big, but I think it's bigger than most people realize. And the reason why I would say that is because, in my opinion, it's not just about Russia and Ukraine and the United States. It's really not even about the Ukraine. It's really about Russia and the United States. But really, it's about Russia versus the globalists, specifically the globalists. Putin has come out and said so many times. As a matter of fact, he's come out being very critical of the World Economic Forum, very critical of Klaus Schwab, critical of Klaus Schwab's books and his ideas for this, man and machine, fourth industrial revolution, very critical of woke culture. He said that, I'll paraphrase it. I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but he said basically, all you progressive nations, you think that you have progress by blurring the lines of men and women and destroying families. He said that's nothing new. That's not progress. So that's no different than the dogmas taught by Marx and Engels, of course, Karl Marx, who wrote the Communist Manifesto. He said it's the same thing that happened in Russia in the 1900s that led to the Bolshevik Revolution and tens of millions of people dying. We don't want any of that. He said, we reject that. And that's what the war is really about. It's a revolution. Russia is fighting a war against globalism. Again, it's another signpost. And of course, we also see this happening in lots of other countries, the people versus the governments. And that's really where we should be focusing our effort when we look at revolutions. In the United States specifically, we get really caught up on my team versus your team, blue team versus red team, Republicans versus Democrats. If only we got a fill-in-the-blank other party. If only we got Republicans, or only if we got Democrats. If only my party could get leadership. And so we're caught fighting each other when really they're both the same. And what we're seeing all over the world, in the United States and all over the world, is it's we the people versus the governments that are trying to centrally plan us. And we're seeing it in Iran, in China, in South America, in Brazil, in Chile, and so much more. I'm going to break into that.